Hello and welcome to Glory Be, interesting people and how they pray.
Each week, we chat with interesting people about their lives, their work, and how they pray. I'm Sharon Hanish.
And I'm Mike Malcolm, sitting in for Father Vince.
Our guest this week is Jackie Fusco. Jackie is currently the Director of Outreach Ministry here at the Church of St. Mary. Jackie grew up here in Tulsa and at a young age found herself as a single mother of 3 in Denver. She relocated back to Tulsa and worked in her family restaurant business and fell in love with hospitality. She has taken her love of hospitality, her love of people, and her love of her faith and combined those to create a wonderful ministry serving the poor in Tulsa out of our own outreach here at St. Mary's. Jackie is married to celebrity chef Michael Fusco and has 5 children and 1 grandchild. Welcome, Jackie.
Well,
Hooray.
thank you. Hello.
We're so excited
thank you for
that
having
you're here.
me. Yeah, me too. Thanks for inviting me.
So, this podcast grew out of our need to reach people during the pandemic, during a time of quarantine. So talk to us, how's your pandemic been? I know it's impacted your ministry and
Yeah, it did
your
a number
life.
on us. We had 2 things that happened here at the church in our ministry. One was a foreseen closure of our ministry, and the unforeseen was the pandemic hit. And so I lost all of our volunteers that were over the age of 60. So we really downsized very quickly and were crippled in the efforts that we were able to do prior to the pandemic. We're looking forward to having a new building. Our ministry has grown, and we want to do more for our community, and we're getting a new building. So we're waiting for that to be built. And so we had the closure of our offices, and our annex was demolished to put our new building, a new community building, in place for that. So we've been kind of in limbo with space-wise and stuff like that. So our pantry's been closed, and we've no volunteers to come and kind of work with our clients. We don't get to see our clients. Our clients don't want to get out in the pandemic. And so it's really been, I feel like I'm in a desert.
yes.
Last year was hard.
It was
because
very
they're just
hard.
shutting down. But now there's hope. I mean, This is
Yes.
the year you're almost there.
Oh,
Almost to a groundbreaking. Almost
Oh,
to
yes.
starting things back up.
yes. Glory to God on that, because I'm itching to get involved back with our clients. I just miss working with our poor. One day I'll tell you the short story. I was in adoration. It was probably, what month are we in? We're in March, right?
April now.
April, yeah. So it was last July, and I went to adoration, and I was asked to do a talk over service. And so I was in adoration, and I was like, I don't know what to write about service. So I kind of just got real quiet and just ho-hemmed around about what am I supposed to write. I had my tablet ready. I was ready for any inspiration that was given to me during adoration. Nothing was coming, and then I heard the voice says, "Ask me." And as soon as I heard that sweet voice, I'm like, why did you ask me to serve the poor? And he said to me, this makes me want to cry every time I hear this. He said, because I want to be closer to you.
Wow.
I miss that so much. So I do get to see him in the poor.
Yes.
So I miss that part of our ministry. So not having our clients around, that's what I do miss
that
the
would be
most. That's what my pandemic's been like.
So what's happened to a lot of the clients? Because they don't have the access to medical care.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't. So what our demographics here, so we have a different demographic. We have our neighbors that border us within a half mile from here are very poor. They're all, majority are disabled and live in that Social Security income, about $700, $800 a month. So they get a check every month. They have food stamps. They have some health, not a lot. So they weren't really affected by losing jobs or not having availability to food or anything like that. So we actually started to see a lot more different demographic calling in, asking for different things that kind of changed our ministry right now during this last year. So we've done a lot more shelter, hotel rooms. We've done a lot of outside help. We've also brought in a vaccine clinic to make sure that we can get our people healthy again, and so everybody's active and out and about in the community. So there's been a few things that we've tried to adjust to the needs.
Yes, I feel like you really have. I mean, I've been thinking as you've been talking before we get to how you got here and this wonderful ministry that you're now in charge of. You mentioned to me that your story, you didn't grow up Catholic.
No.
Then you did find yourself as a single mom. You came back and you worked in a restaurant. Just talk about your vocation story, how you met Michael, how you came into the church. Take us back.
Okay, how much time we got?
And you've got about 5
Okay,
minutes to do, maybe 3.
Okay. Well, so yeah, you're right. So I was born and we were raised on the farm, and the only type of religion that we had was a once and twice a year maybe of going to church, and that was at the local Greek Orthodox church. So and not being catechized into it. It was just something that we went to because I'm sure my parents felt like we probably need to do something with these kids, My mom grew up Catholic. She went to all school, girl Catholic school, graduated from high school with Catholics, and then went on to some college in a Catholic college. And she ended up meeting my dad on the San Francisco Bay Bridge as one of the money takers to go across the bridge. That's what she was, and my dad was a vendor. He'd go by on the bridge. He'd go to my mom's booth every time so he could see her. And so they fell in love, and my mom wanted to get married. They wanted to get married. So they went to her priest, and at the time the priest said, "No, you can't be married in the church." That was enough for my mom and my mom and dad both to make a decision, let's just go to the justice of peace. Mind you, that my father had already been married and divorced and had a young child. So the annulment process, I guess, was not part of their answer at that time. So they did. They went and got married in the church, the justice of peace, and then they had this beautiful family of 5 children and raised us on a farm. And my mom never went back to the church, but I guess at times when we started to get a little bit older, say about 10, 11, we started to go back to the church once or twice a year. No catechizing or anything like that. So that was kind of what I grew up with. It was just a random time to go to church, whenever my mom and dad felt like it. So as I graduated from high school, I left and I never really went back to the church. I mean, I went to different churches with my then boyfriend and then my ex-husband back then. But, First Baptist Church and all that kind of stuff. And that never really felt comfortable to me. It was just, I don't know, it just never sat comfortable. So I never really went to church.
Okay, so then you come back.
Yes.
You're here. You're working in a family restaurant.
Yes.
And that's where you mentioned you sort of fell in love with hospitality and then maybe fell in love with one of the chefs.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Who happened to be Catholic, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I actually come back to my family's restaurant here in Tulsa, and one of the bartenders, I think is what she was at the time. Anyway, she was talking about she was Greek Orthodox, and I was like, "Oh, I know Greek Orthodox," and I know the name. I mean, I don't know the religion, but and she was like, "Really?" And I actually had thought about going back to the church because I was divorced. I was having a very hard time with my 3 kids, and I needed direction, and I needed to protect my children. So she just started talking to me, and I started going to church with her. And so we just decided me and the 3 kids will be baptized Greek Orthodox. She's my godmother now. And and then so never catechized again, and that because the priest at the time had thought that I was already in the Greek Orthodox world, that I was already accepted with all the things that you're supposed to have. So didn't have that. So what happened was I got baptized as a Greek Orthodox, and then the chef, now my husband, was Catholic. And so as we discussed years into dating, 10 years of dating, how do we do a Greek Orthodox in a Catholic marriage? So naturally, I just dropped out of the Greek Orthodox world and just started to embrace the Catholic Church with my husband. So it was a very slow going at first, because he was very faithful, but he didn't go all the time. So I kind of caught on to that as like, okay, you can be faithful, but you don't have to go all the time, right?
Right, right.
And not knowing that wasn't okay. And I didn't know to think that it wasn't okay. So anyway, we just kind of started to talk about marriage, and then we started to go through marriage prep and all of that. And it was an eye-opener for me. I knew I had to be a certain way, but I didn't know what that way was. And so I just kind of held on to the curtails of my husband and just try to be as Catholic as I could.
Yes.
With the baptism that I had. And God gave me so much grace during that time, I tell you what.
Well, I love that story, and I am familiar with some other parts of your story as well, which I'll talk when we move into our How Do You Pray part of the podcast. But before we do that, so you become Catholic, you love hospitality. What drew you to ministry in the church? Like, how did you end up as an outreach director?
Good story.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go again. So, back, I think it was in 2016, I was a very angry, frustrated person with my marriage, with life, with my older children, with what life had turned out for me at 40 years old, whatever the age I was. So I held on to that for a long time, and I didn't realize I was holding on to it. I always thought I'm so nice, and I'm so blah, blah, blah. What had happened was my husband had fallen ill and had sustained a brain injury from his illness. And it was very, very trying. Working and dealing with somebody with a brain injury is very, very frustrating as well. So that kind of really opened up and blossomed all of this kind of this inner anger and perturbedness that I had. Like, it was hard. It was very hard to work through that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a rock or a foundation. I thought I did, but it wasn't solid. So I could see the fracture of our marriage. I can see the fracture of life. I can just see this brokenness. So, and this is leading up to the ministry, so I promise you.
Oh, yeah, this is beautiful.
Okay. And so what had happened was my husband, our kids were here at the preschool at the church here, and my husband was asked to go on a men's Acts retreat. And this is while he's still kind of recuperating from his illness. He was still having some long-term symptoms. And it was afflicting him where he couldn't work. So financially, we were very burdened also. So Acts was not on the list of things for us to mark off on our list. I mean, we had other things we had to hustle about. So, but what happened was he ended up going, and I was like, thank gosh. He is finally going to do something. Do something. That's what I wanted him to do. Just do something. And he did. We came back. He was about 95% healed from his afflictions. And I saw the difference in him when he came back. And I was blown away. He was blown away. And it revived a restored part in his self, and he was able to, show to me. He couldn't tell me about it, but he could show me some of the things that had happened to him in his healing. So naturally, I wondered, but the women's Acts retreat wasn't for another 6 months. So I did ultimately go into that 6-month window. I was really, really kind of shaky about it, but I did desire if God healed my husband, he could heal this. So we went into Acts retreat, and that's where I had an amazing, very powerful, profound encounter with Jesus. And he cracked open a dark heart where he could shed light in. And from that moment on, I surrendered everything I had to him and have dedicated my life and my family and my marriage, everything to him. And he's very pleased with this new relationship. So am I. At the time, it was just infatuation. I'm like, I want to know who your mom was. I want to know who your dad is. I want to know who the saints are. I want to know all of this. And so I naturally went on I just couldn't get enough. I could not get enough. Since I'd been baptized already Greek Orthodox, which is very similar to a Roman Catholic baptism, so I had all of the what do you call it? Sacraments. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've had all the sacraments. And so really the only thing that I had to do to become Catholic, to ultimately become Catholic, was just to go to confession. And so I did that on our Acts retreat. So that's when I was welcomed into the church, and Jesus was there to receive me.
And what an amazing transformation. Not that
yes, it was.
I didn't know you as the angry person. You're always very cordial and polite. But you are absolutely one of the most faithful people I know. I mean, you go to Mass, 300 days a year?
Yeah.
Something?
Yeah.
Or more?
Yeah.
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 You're a rock.
I love that. I love him enough to do that. I know how much void in my life there will be if I don't. Mm-hmm. I know that. So it's very important to me to keep that current and fresh. I want him every day. I want the Eucharist. I want that. So leading to the ministry is what ultimately had happened. So after my Acts retreat, and about, I think there's probably about 6, 8, 10 months of this infatuation time with me and Jesus. We were just like this, best buds. I'm telling you what, we did everything together. Everything together. But during that time, I'd also learned of Saint Therese of Lisieux. She had taught me how to really pray and talk to Jesus. And so she taught me how to be bold with my prayer, like not our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, not that kind of a prayer, like real just, really good prayer, like a good conversation like we're having right here, one-on-one. I had told him, said, Lord, I want to do whatever you want me to do. I don't want to live the way I had. I don't. So you tell me what you want me to do, and I will do it. And I would love to do it for you. And so just that small little request or surrender that I had with him during these few months' time, he would give me little tidbits of things that I was going to be doing. And of course, I'm blind as a bat. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm just like, yes, I'll do it. I'll just do it. Just point me in the direction. I'll do it. Without any questions of like, okay, wait a minute, why am I going to do this? Or, what's involved in doing this? It was nothing like that. I was like, I want to do it. And so I was working with the family out in Bixby. I was coming downstairs and I heard this voice, you won't be here any longer. And I heard that and I'm like, oh, okay. Whatever that is, I'm happy with it. Whether, I kind of sat back and thought, do I need to go get my health checked? Or no, I just kind of like, through my being naive, I just went straight through. I'm like, okay. And then the second was probably a couple of weeks later. I was in, I don't remember where I was at, but he came to me again. He says, you will work under my roof. And I said, okay, I'm ready. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what his roof meant. It could mean anything, right? So then it was probably about 2 weeks after that, I was on Facebook. I just got home from work and was not looking for a job or anything like that. I was on Facebook just kind of chilling out, and the first thing that opens up on there is Church of St. Mary is looking for outreach director. And I've been following at that time on Facebook our church, and I just kind of saw that, read over it, glanced over it, and just kind of, started threading through, and then I heard the voice say, "Go back," and I kind of stopped, and I'm like, did I really hear that, or am I just like, so I kept on going, and then I heard it say, "Go back," and I'm like, okay, so I go back, and it goes back to the very top thread again. And it's Church of St. Mary's looking for outreach director. And I looked at it, and I'm like, I wonder what this is. And so I punched on it, looked at it, and it looked like jibber jabber to me. I mean, foreign language. I don't know what an outreach director is. I don't even know what the language was. I mean, I couldn't.
Well, be nice because her husband typed it.
I know.
I know.
Well, be nice to me.
Exactly. As you were talking, I mean, and the rest is history.
Yes.
Obviously, I have to push us along because I have a few other questions. But your faithfulness, your awareness, and your ability to listen and be attentive to God and God's promptings in your life is a great example to me. And sometimes you hear that still small voice and you keep scrolling. But if you'll become aware and respond, it's great things. God can dream bigger than we can,
Absolutely.
and so you're just a great example of that. So as you've actually kind of addressed some of the things that when we move to this How You Pray part of our podcast, because I did have on here that I knew you were involved in Acts in that retreat program and that you are a woman of prayer, so I know that was kind of a turning point. What about just day to day? I know you go to daily mass. You mentioned that. That's certainly a lot of people that centers them and focuses them, and it's missed if they don't go every day.
Yeah.
And then you've talked about just talking to God, as if, like you were mentioning, as if he's just right here. It's like we're talking. Do you do anything else, like a type of prayer, whether that's scripture or meditation or the rosary, or what other kind of prayer draws your heart?
Well, I have my group, prayer group that we meet every Thursday night, and we do our rosary. And so we will do it special intentions, and that's one of my favorite times of the week because we get to meet together as our group, and then we also get to just let ourselves go and just, it's not about us, it's about our intentions of whoever we're wanting to pray with and pray over. And so we say the rosary, and that's one of our favorite times of the week. I just love the rosary. Knowing Mary now the way I know her compared to what I thought she was or who she was prior to me becoming Catholic was such a distorted view. I just didn't understand her role or her place. But after being a part of the rosary, and it's amazing. She's an amazing woman. I couldn't say enough about her. But that's one of my special places when I go to is saying the rosary.
Oh yeah, no, it's always kind of especially in times of struggle. It just pops to my head. I love the rosary as well. Okay, so we ask, and you address this. There's some things that we ask all our guests, Jackie. And you mentioned, I know you've had some times in your life that have been hard, and maybe those aren't the times when it's been difficult to pray. Sometimes those hard things, throw us into the hands of God. But has there been a time in your life when you felt particularly far from God, or that it's been difficult to pray?
Yeah, there was a time when my husband got sick. That was very dark.
Yes,
it was very dark. All I knew at that time was we needed something greater than ourselves to get through this. And I would pray, and I thought I would be praying, but I didn't get any results with that prayer. There was no intimacy with it. There was no spiritual connection with it. It was just a plea of, oh, Lord, please take care of us. Or, Lord, please just send us something, an anchor, something, and nothing would come from those prayers. And I felt very discouraged, and I felt very alone. And I'm sure my husband did too at the time, because he didn't know what was going on. He had a brain injury. He was trying to recover as best as he could, and brain injuries are long. They take a long time to recover. So that was very hard to go through. But at that time, there was one prayer that I knew to say, that I was taught from the preschool, because my kids were going there. If any prayer that you could say for protection, and I knew we needed protection, any prayer that we could say was the St. Michael prayer. So I started to institute we said that prayer probably at least 5 times a day as a family. When we wake up in the morning, before the kids go to school, before any meal that we had, we would say it, and then say it with our nighttime prayers. And I tell you, I think that probably saved our lives back then.
So you stick with it. You kept praying, even though you were like, where is God in all of this?
Yes. But I knew St. Michael was there to protect us. I felt like we were being attacked.
Yeah.
I thought we were being just buried by demons, and we're like, we're good people. We don't deserve this. And, blah, blah, blah. We must be under attack. And so, so the only warrior that I knew of that could actually do an excellent job would be St. Michael. Yeah. So we just said that prayer. And so I'd have to say that was probably a good anchor at that time when I felt like I couldn't talk to God.
Well, and what fruit that bore.
Oh,
too. What a change.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amazing fruit.
Yeah.
Amazing fruit. We're on the Joan of Arc ministry right now, my husband and myself, and that's a healing and deliverance ministry. And who would have known that our experiences would lead us to a ministry like that as well? So, lots of fruit.
Are a great example of somebody who just trusts in God and doesn't hesitate to follow God's prompting. So, I think that's just wonderful.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
An inspiration, Jackie.
Absolutely. Lots of respect.
Well, thank you.
So tell me one of the things that we ask all of our guests, if you could get the entire world to join you for a moment in prayer for one intention, what would that be?
I know this sounds so cliche when I say this, is that for world peace. That is what I would ask for. Because I know that if we had peace, inner peace within ourselves and with each other, our world would be a better place.
I love that. One of our Encore people said that every time she washes her hands, it's been in the middle of a pandemic, she says a Hail Mary so that she washes them long enough, and she says it for world peace.
Yeah.
And so ever since she said that, I do that. And, it is one of my favorite prayer intentions, and I'm glad that you mentioned it.
Yeah, I feel like a contestant on
yes.
What is it, Miss USA or something like that?
I know, but that is what they,
But
I
truly,
haven't thought about that before.
Yeah. But truly, world peace
it's the
world
dream.
Peace.
It's the dream. It's the destination.
Yep.
It's the end game.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it too.
Well, would you lead us in prayer now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Since this is Glory Be podcast, would you lead us in a Glory Be?
Absolutely. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
Great.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Glory Be is a production of the Office of Communications at the Church of St. Mary in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm your producer, Mike Malcolm. See you next week.